All right, we are live. I want to welcome everyone to tonight's school board meeting. This is Wednesday, August 19th, 2020 regular board meeting. At this time, we're gonna let Member Gator, she's trying to get her sound working, but we're gonna go ahead and call the roll.
Mrs. Moomin?
Can all the board members please come off mute? She's here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Mrs. Gator? She's working on her volume.
Yeah. Mimi, let me just tell her to nod her head. Not sure why she can't get in. She's coming in on another computer though.
Mr. Freeman?
Present.
And Miss Mitchell?
Here.
I'm sorry, I'm here.
Okay. All right. Now we have you on doubles.
I know, I gotta figure out how to get the other one on.
All right. All righty. At this time, welcome everyone. Hope you've had a good day, and welcome to all of our guests as well. We are going to take this time and go to item 1.2. And Mr. Jolly, if you can recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Mr. Jolly, are you going to share the screen?
Yes, I am.
Okay. We'll sit tight.
Hold on. You're at 1.3.
Yes, we're at 1.2. I'm sorry, yes, 1.3. If I can have a motion on the floor for the approval of today's agenda. But before we do that, I just want to make sure there's nothing that we're adding or deleting from tonight's agenda. Mr. Jolly, Dr. Rock?
There's no additions to the agenda
Okay.
tonight.
All righty. If I may have a motion on the floor to approve item 1.3.
Madam Chair, I move to approve 1.3, approval of tonight's agenda, August 19th, 2020 regular board meeting.
Thank you. It's been moved. May I have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved, seconded. Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Moomin?
Something's happening. Let me see if I can get her off mute. I can't unmute her.
Can she give us the
I'm
highs?
gonna have to log out.
Oh, there you are.
Hey, you're there. You're there.
Yeah, but I can't, do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
I can hear you guys, but,
We can hear
oh,
you.
okay,
All right.
all right.
If
Well,
he's calling roll for
okay.
approval of the
It still got
agenda.
me saying, still. Okay. Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Gator?
Yes.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes.
Miss Mitchell?
Yes, motion passes 5-0. We are now at item 1.4. And we need a motion on the floor to approve the following minutes: regular meeting, June 24th, 2020, regular meeting, July 22nd, 2020, special meeting, July 23rd, 2020, the special meeting, July 27th, 2020.
Madam Chair, I move for item 1.4, approval of the minutes. I'm looking for approval for the minutes of following: regular meeting, June 24th, 2020, regular meeting, July 22nd, 2020, special meeting, July 23rd, 2020, and special meeting, July 27th, 2020.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes,
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
yes,
Ms. Mitchell.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. We're now at the time of our agenda where we're going to hand it over to our superintendent, Mr. Jolly, for his update.
I need one moment so I could pull up Sean's email in the presentation from today.
Okay,
1 second.
we are here.
Almost there. 1 second.
All righty.
Okay. Hold on, let me get back here. Okay, I appreciate the opportunity today. So we have I have two presentations. I have my own presentation, but I also have a construction presentation today. So I'd like to start with the construction presentation. We have Mr. Zanoni here, Mr. Myers and Mr. White. I'm going to pull up their presentation, and they're going to give an update on the middle and high school. For those that know, and for the community, on Tuesday night, the city of Warrensville did approve our site plan for the new middle and high school. Tonight, our team will discuss and talk about next steps. They'll talk about the GMP that's on the agenda tonight to move us forward. Again, this is a very aggressive plan. What our hope is to have this high school up by the summer of July 22. So let me get it up, and we can start presentation.
Okay. Okay, this is Steve Zanoni. I'm just going to open it up, and I'm actually going to ask Doug and Sean to do the presentation. But first of all, I want to thank the board for letting us come in front of you today. And as Don's explained, what's important about why we would like to start the project now is twofold. One is obviously to get to the summer of 22 for the opening of the high school and middle school. But also, one of the things that we learned when we did the first project was that we did the site work, that is the preparation of the site for construction. We did that during the spring. And because it was done during the spring, you have no control over weather, and particularly it's what was quite wet. And it really, really caused a lot of delays and extra costs, as you're all aware, when we got to segment 1. So what the design team, and particularly the Infinity team, have come up with, I think, a really good program, is to do all the site work, which includes all the logistics of getting everything set up, putting up fences, things of that nature. Also the demolition of the existing stadium, and then to put the building pad. And what that is it's basically the platform in which you start the construction itself. And this pad will actually have a concrete topping on top of it, which would keep everything dry. And it really does make a huge difference in the overall schedule in doing that. I do want to also point out, as Don mentioned, we were in front of the City of Warrensville Heights has been very, very helpful to us. We had 2 meetings with the Planning Commission. They've provided a lot of input. We actually made some adjustments on the site plan to put more room between the new high school and the existing apartments that are on the south end, significantly more than what's there today. And so that I think is going to make a big difference. And so that allow for a landscaped area. And then also they helped us with that. And then they even put a special meeting of the Planning Commission because they knew of our schedule. And we were in front of the council who approved us starting this site work today. So I'm going to hand it off to Doug and to Sean. And if you guys want to go through, I'll let you guys do the actual presentation. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Steve. And I'll do most of it, Sean. I know you talk a lot of these presentations. Good evening, everyone. As Mr. Jolly mentioned, we're here tonight to give an update as to where we are in the process for the design of the middle school and the high school, as well as to make a request for the GMP one for the early site for the approval. And we'll go into more detail of the scope and of the budget for that. And as always, feel free to ask questions as we go. So as a project update, as we are developing the project, we've had a series, and we mentioned this 2 weeks ago, we've had a series of user group meetings. So Moody Nolan and our engineers are working to incorporate those into the design, as well as the city comments that have been given to us in the last couple of weeks. We are pursuing LEED, as you know, so that is being developed. And we're also starting with our phase 1 and our hazardous materials assessments as we get into the demolition of the building and everything else. GMP 1, we're making the request tonight. Infinity has sent that out for bid right now, so they're getting the hard numbers for that, which will follow. That's pretty much where we are with the overall process. If we go to the next slide. The project is still with funding of $66.5 million. As the project's developed, we're slightly higher than what we were last time. We're very comfortable with where we are, though, in the development of the project. The team has been working to develop value engineering items, as well as add alternates, just like we did for the new elementary school as part of the process. We're very comfortable with where we are in the budget. We also wanted to let you know that as we had some of the challenges with COVID, where the states kind of requested the MOU with the board for the district to go ahead and cover the design costs so that we're able to keep the project moving. They have made that approval so that they're going to be removing that MOU and reimbursing the school district for all of the professional fees that have been paid while we've been going through the design. So now the state's kind of caught up to us. And so that's really good news for the project.
And just to add to that, their funding now, I know one of the big questions was, what if they weren't going to fund us? Well, they are funding us now. The state approved the monies back in July for all the districts that are under construction. So we have our full state funding now in our project.
Yes. As far as the schedule, we are on schedule, as Mr. Jolly mentioned, for the completion. And as we're going through this, you can imagine all of the work that has to take place. Infinity has a very detailed plan of week to week, basically, of everything that needs to be accomplished. And so we are working towards that plan. With the early site package approval tonight, it's very important that we can go ahead and get that approval to get started for the mobilization of the site. We also would like, with that approval, and also we have some follow-up with the city for some permitting and everything else, but we'd like to really break ground on September 8th so that we can start our mobilization. The construction documents will continue to develop, but we'll be finalizing those. And we will be coming in February for actually the GMP for the rest of the building. We go to the next slide, please. So we wanted to kind of give an update with a lot has happened since the last time we talked in the presentation that we made, mainly with the city. And as Steve had mentioned, when the city looked at our site, they weren't happy with how close we were to the apartments and how far south we were on the property. So the team aggressively worked and was able to go ahead and to shift. And this is mostly the middle school. It is the high school also. But as far as a kind of a modification of the design, it's really where the middle school meets the high school and where it meets the science wing. So that, as you can see here in the gray area, shows the outline of where the building was when we last talked to you. And so what the request was and what we were able to accomplish was we were designing the building so that the building will not come any further south on the property line than the existing building is with the science wing. We're able to accomplish this. We're still having design meetings and everything else, but this won't change the program of the building. We're pushing the architects to design this within the square footage that we have so that we can keep all of the costs in place. As far as site development, this did not sacrifice any of our parking spaces that we need to have when we have events and everything else. And basically, if you go to the next slide, we can start to show some of the site improvements that we're looking to make. So these were all basically, we have some landscaping. We're still in the design process, but we might do some serpentine mounds. We definitely do some types of plantings with trees, and also with the site access. So there's been several requests that have developed with this, but it's been approved by the city and we're going to continue to develop it. So I kind of wanted to start there to show you kind of what's changed since the last time we talked. So with the early site GMP, I wanted to show this. I think starting simple is probably a good way to begin. This graphic really shows what the project limits will be for the GMP 1. We'll get into some of the details of the scope, but with this, you can see the outline of the existing high school. You can see in blue where we have the science wing that we're going to be attaching to. And then the rest of the blue is showing the new building that we're going to have. The dark area shows where Infinity is going to be putting up safety barricades and fencing, and where we're going to be having the site so that we can separate that from the high school so that all of the high school can go ahead and stay in place and operate as normal. We're not going to have any work off of Northfield Road. Everything else will be coming from the west of the building as far as construction services. But I wanted to show this so you can really get a feel for what we're looking at. Okay, if we go to the next slide. So the purpose and the scope for this is, again, as Mr. Jolly and Steve had mentioned, we would like to go ahead and get started now. And what this does is it takes the question of weather out of our hands. It gives Infinity a chance to mobilize, to go ahead and to do some site work, and to go ahead and to get a base for the building where we can have a clean area to work around the building, and then a base for the building so that when spring does come around, we don't have to start in mud. We can go ahead and we can get into the foundations and the steel erection and help us better control the overall cost and schedule of the project. So this will implement the site logistics and safety. The demolition that will be involved will be with the ball fields and the field structures with the bleachers. Infinity will be installing a road for access and then a road that will go around the new building. So as you can imagine, as the building's constructed, we can have a nice paved, a nice graveled area to keep all of the loading equipment and the material easily accessed to the site to help with the construction. The building pad, concrete stabilization, as we did with the new elementary school. And then as far as utilities, pretty much as Sean can get started on, he's going to get started on. We'll need to do SWIP plans to be able to manage all of the storm runoff. And any utilities that we can tie into, we're going to try to tie into. Obviously, the high school is going to stay in operation. So some of these utilities we're just not going to be able to tie into yet, but that's all being planned. And of course, then we're going to be able to set up where the contractor trailers are going to be in all the mobilization areas. You can go to the next slide, please. So the cost for this GMP, and it came in right where Infinity was estimating, as well as where we have slotted as far as the overall $65.5 million. The direct cost is $2,757,485. The reimbursable costs and the CMR contingency, $154,571. The bond is $29,121. And the 2% CM fee is $58,824, which takes us to $3 million for this. This project is, as we mentioned before, is out to bid now. If we have any bid day savings, those will be managed in the project. Everything is open book, and so we'll be able to see what all those numbers are. Okay. I thought it was also important to go ahead and just to share what is not included in this. As we learned with the elementary school, with any construction, the site is a risky part of the business. So this does have some exclusions, because quite frankly, we didn't want to have Infinity guessing on it and throwing numbers at it. But in some of these items, we don't anticipate, but they are exclusions and clarifications. There's no asbestos abatement included in this, which we don't anticipate that we're going to have any. Major dewatering, soil drying, or stabilization is all excluded from this. Unknown buried foundations, rock excavation are excluded. And work on the east side of the high school is excluded, which is, what is expected. We're not expecting to do any of that, and any utility work that's not shown. I just wanted to share those with you so that if we do need to come back with any kind of a request, that you would understand that we're not buying any of those items right now. So to kind of get into more of the logistics of the GMP and what's included, I thought it would be helpful to show this aerial view. So what this doesn't show is the existing high school, but you can see where we have the new middle school text. That is the location of the science wing. And you can see where we had labeled the rec. So the rest of the area is pretty much where we're going to have for the GMP 1 site, early site package. If we can go to the next slide. That was also another frame of reference here. We can kind of move through this, but basically this slide shows where the new high school is going to be, the demolition of the stadium seating and the football and the other fields that we're going to be starting to take out. Please go to the next slide. And this is a more detailed slide of what the areas, the structures we have that will be demolished. And I think we
Doug,
have another slide.
If you mind, Doug, I'll just add in what's key on this is just for the board's understanding is that there's a lot of egress, life safety components that we had to incorporate. And what this is really showing is that the yellow, maintaining sidewalks for egress on the backside of the existing high school if there is ever an emergency. So we'll create an area, what I call a safe zone. This will all be more detailed and approved when I submit these documents to the city of Warrensville Heights for permit. But there's a lot of detail on this drawing, but that's pretty much what that is indicating at that point. So that's what I'd like to say on that, Doug.
Great, thank you. And I think the next slide should be, yeah, so this would be a good slide, Sean, if you want to talk to this too, because this gets into some of the details of how we're going to be actually mobilizing on the site. Some of these items we've already talked about. And Sean, do you want to see if
I
there's
would
anything?
love, I would love to. As Doug is describing, this whole phase is critical to the setup of the project. As Steve indicated initially, when we did this on the PK through 5, what I classify as our site logistics, then I'll show you what those are. We did them in spring, and it rained a lot last spring, or that year that it did rain. It slowed us down. But the intent is during the setup here is that if over to the left is Warrensville Center Road, you see the existing middle school and the bus garage. We will not impact any of the operation of those two facilities. So I will build a fence on the backside of those and will not be accessing the access drive that goes between the middle school and the existing high school. The only personnel would be our staff that would drive down that road to get to the trailers so they can park there. The intent is that we're going to cut an access road in off of Warrensville Center Road, and it's the blue, and there's lines. It's a two-way traffic pattern, but that road will go about 1,000 feet back to the building pad. And then from there is the building pad itself, and there's what we classify as a ring road that goes around that. What's important for that is that just from an access, you're going to have over 175 concrete trucks that will be on this project during the placement of the concrete operation. I will have about 70 flatbed trailers that will go in length from 50 to 65 feet that will have steel delivery. So as you can see, I'm going to have a lot of construction traffic just for those two trades, let alone all the other trades. The orange areas represent parking. I need to create parking for 150 construction personnel on site. So we created a construction or a parking area that's just south of the access road. Below that is the laydown area. So I have to be able to turn what I said, 50-foot, 62-foot long tractor trailers around on this site. And then you can't really see it, but they'll access it between the building pad and the parking area and turn around. And then where the laydown area is where we would unload materials. And then they would be able to take those materials and then get them around the building access. South of that is the trailer park. We'll have about 8 to 10 construction trailers from the various trades that will be set up on the project. Again, as Steve indicated and Doug, we're a firm believer, and I've done this and I think Don Jolly, as you indicated, we have a very aggressive schedule. I like aggressive schedules. I've done them in the past, but it's key to our success is doing some cement stabilization, which I've learned over my 39 years is a very important aspect to incorporate for your site logistics. You don't want to be working in mud up to your knees with trade activity. It slows you down and impacts the quality of the work long term. So we're going to be demoing the existing football facility, the track, and then doing some minor utility relocations. And our intent is that I will have fence lines and it'll be very well defined so that the student population cannot access the site on either side, or the construction workers cannot get to those areas. So we will define that and have that well marked with fencing and some gate access and such. It's a very elaborate plan, but it's based on 39 years of doing this from a construction basis of where I know to get my construction personnel in, get my construction traffic in, my material deliveries, and access this building to create the best opportunity to provide the best pricing when we go out for bids. What I've found out in history of doing this is that if contractors know that you're very well organized and that you've developed a good plan And the market already knows it based on our results that we have in the PK through 5, that I'm expecting better numbers as we go into this and bid this thing in February of 2020. But as far as this package goes, we're out on the street on bids right now. I have 6 bidders that will be bidding this project. I'm expecting some aggressive numbers. And I think, as Doug alluded, is that I'm hoping and I'm anticipating that we should be able to beat our GMP numbers, which would be great because that money would just flow back into the project. But this is critical for us to get this approved and to proceed on this so that when spring comes, we all know what happens in spring, it rains. And by doing these things and cement stabilizing these areas, I can work on them in the rain, shine, snow, whatever it might be that happens as we go forward. So that's the in essence of this first package.
So what's going to be next? Future board actions is if we have any issues that come up, that I mentioned that there is some risk as we get into the site and everything, that we might come for that. Or also if there's any opportunities that we see where we might be able to accelerate something, we might come back and make a request. I mean, we're still pushing for the project as much as we can. And again, the GMP2, which would be the rest of the package, will include all of the foundations and the building that will be coming in February of 2021. And I think that completed our presentations. If there's any questions.
Board, are there any questions?
Madam Chair, I do have one question. Sean, on that access road off of Warrensville Center Road, is there some trees over there?
There are not, Ray.
Okay. And
There
we
are
got,
a couple trees that are closer to the Highland Hills property line, but
Okay.
I'm not taking any trees down where that access road is.
okay. And did we do the soil samples and well, you did the surveys, right?
We did, the soil borings have been completed already by the engineer of record.
Okay.
We have those documentation and we use those in preparation of our package that we put out to the bidders.
Thank you, sir.
Right, if there are no additional questions, Mr. Jolly, did you want to keep going?
Yes, keep going. I just have a few, just points, 2 items I want to share with the board. If I get my screen to work. Yeah, the first thing I wanted to just share with the board some updates that's going on in the district. This week we started the Chromebook repair, in which we have our technicians repairing Chromebooks that we dispersed last year. Today I was actually at the high school. There were a line of people coming in to get their Chromebooks repaired. So this is a service that we have provided our students since we've been out in the pandemic, and it's been quite useful for our parents and students to ensure that they have the equipment that they need to be successful. Yesterday started Tiger Parent University. This is an online professional development for our parents. Our curriculum team is leading this, Dr. Kaber Bailey, Roxanne, Ruth, and we actually had teachers today. Actually, Ms. Couture was the lead presenter. There were 60-something people on the calls yesterday. I don't know the numbers today, but again, this is our effort to make sure that our parents understand how to use the computer, how to navigate through the programs, and they had an opportunity to ask questions throughout the presentation. And then the middle school, as you know, we're going 1-to-1 at the middle school. So I just wanted to go over the process of how the middle school is picking up their computers. Dr. Reynolds is leading this charge. and the principals. There will be some dates coming up soon for the elementary school students to pick up their computers, and I will forward that information to the board as soon as possible. The convocation, our annual convocation is Friday. This is our first virtual convocation on Friday. I appreciate the board members all shooting your videos. It's going to be a great presentation. We appreciate the everyone participating. Again, this is new to all of us, a virtual convocation, but a lot of planning has went into it, and we hope that it does set the tone for an outstanding year that we all are looking for. All right, so I do got some updates on the municipal center, the board move. So we've started that process. We will get the information moving to deliver here next week, actually the week of the 24th. The movers will be here on 9/11 to move move all the items to the new board. We will actually move in on the 14th. So the board will move on the 14th. The furniture, the city hall, they'll be starting to prepare the furniture on the week of August 31st. So we should be officially moved in the new board by September 14th. So important dates is the virtual open houses, which will be next week. Again, a first time doing it. We'll send out all the information for that. But all the open houses would be on Zoom and Google Meets. Our first day of school will be August 31st. The key date, the end of the first quarter, which is October 30th. When we asked to go virtual, that was the first benchmark to determine if we go back to school. So at the end of the first quarter is an important day for us because we'll be monitoring numbers and looking at all the important information to determine before that date, will we return to school in November. I want to give out this tentative date for the municipal center ribbon cutting. In conversations with the mayor, he has a tentative date of October 14th, 2020. So I want to get that on everyone's calendar. And then our ribbon cutting, we anticipate getting the keys to our building on October 30th. And a tentative date of the 31st is possible as a ribbon cutting, allow people to walk the building, see the building. But, you know, and I have to talk to our team about possibly, if we are going back to school, allowing our students to go back when we go back to second quarter, our elementary students. And those numbers would be, we still got a lot of things to work through if that's possible. But October 31st, tentative date, and we will give more information about that in the upcoming weeks if we might need to push that back. But we'll be working toward October 31st, and then we'll be working toward seeing if it's possible that if we are to return to school the second quarter, that we can just put our K-5 into our new elementary school. One other update that's not on here, though, is about sports. For everyone that knows, yesterday, Governor DeWine announced that he's allowing football and all contact sports to happen in the fall. At our last board meeting, the guys gave us permission to start back practicing. So at this point, I talked to our athletic director today extensively, and the plan is to move forward. The other schools in the LEO, I'm not sure how many are planned, but we do know Maple will be participating, and we believe Garfield will, Shaw possibly, to continue the season. So we will, at this point, tentatively have a volleyball season and have a football season. The football season has been cut short. It's only 6 games on this season. And as we get guidance and understanding of how this will work, we will forward it to you. I know questions about what if a child tests positive, all those things. And if that is the case, you know, there's great possibility we'll be forfeiting games and so forth. But I believe we've been practicing or some type of workout since June. We haven't had any cases at all or any suspected cases. And it's a very hard decisions that we are making throughout the district. And I think everybody is facing all these new decisions and with new circumstances. And I just pray that people are patient and understanding that we are always going to do what's best for our students. And sometimes people don't understand or they have their own perspective, but there's a whole other lot of different perspectives on the situation. And again, this has never happened before. We are trailing a whole new pathway, and we have to consider a lot of different variables, in this situation, in all situations, sports, and bringing our teachers back to the buildings and determining if we want who comes back first. Later on in our, it's a resolution to possibly bring back our pre-K, our special needs kids, and our career tech kids to some degree. Again, we're not forcing any student to come back. We're not forcing any staff member to come back. But as a district, we have to continue to move forward. I also want to talk to the board, and later we will talk a little more extensively, is that we've done a total analysis of the district, because remote learning means that there's different roles that's needed in the district. The traditional roles and traditional jobs, a lot are not needed anymore because there's no students on the property. There's no students in the schools. And I have to challenge myself and everybody that we are in a new frontier where we have to think differently. And we have to, because this new frontier it challenges us to develop new skills so that we become valuable in a new world. And if people, many people, myself included, if we stay stuck in the way things were, when all is over, we're going to be left behind. So this whole process of what we're doing, this has been a real tough summer of change, because every week something changes. There's new variables, there's new circumstances that evolve, and we have to try our best to make the best decision for everybody. And I want to say I truly appreciate the board for being a sound board, for being able to, run all these different things through, and for your wisdom that you've provided me and our team as we get through this together. As we have said, one team, one vision, one goal. This is truly permeated this summer as we try to get through this and make the best decisions for all. So with that concludes my report. But I just challenge us all and challenge our community and everybody to continue. We gotta level up. We gotta think differently. We gotta develop new schemata so that we can stay relevant in this new world, because it's changing, and the things that we've done in the past don't work anymore. Like I'll just give an example of planning the first week of school or just planning everything. I've been doing this 25 years, and it's a playbook that you use every year. It alters a little, it changes a little, but it's basically the same. And this year, there's no playbook for it. Everything is different, new, and we got to figure it out as we go. And, we're blessed with a great team, some great thinkers, some people who are able to think out the box so that we can continue to drive and move forward. And with that, it's going to take all of us doing it, because at the end of the rainbow, there's going to be some expectations that our kids are going to have to be a certain place. And together, we got to make sure they get there. So that concludes my report, and I'll open any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jolly. You said so many very critical and crucial things toward the end of your update. This is a new world that we're living in right now, and we are going to have to be very flexible And to your point, thinking outside of the box so that we do everything we can to ensure that our scholars don't fall behind through this time. I know that is a concern on a national schedule. A national scale, because we're all pretty much in the same boat. With that, really quick though, I did want to thank the city of Warrensville for working with Steve and Doug and Sean and Mr. Jolly, Dr. Rock and others to get our site plans approved for the middle and the high school. Thanks to the construction and project management team for the work that you guys are doing to ensure that we will be able to move this second phase of our construction project along to a faster completion. Very exciting. What we've seen so far with the elementary school has been wonderful. So we're looking forward to great things. Board, I wanted to see if you had any questions for Mr. Jolly about the second portion of his update. I don't see anyone raising their hand. Mimi, go ahead.
Mr. Kelly, I had a couple of questions. So with your Chromebook repair, first I want to commend you guys for taking the initiative to get the Chromebook repaired for the families. What's the turnaround for that?
They do it immediately, right while they're there.
Okay,
So the technicians just take it and fix it right there. They
Okay.
don't drop them off at all. They fix them immediately. 'Cause
okay,
they have they have to be district issue Chromebooks. So we have all the parts already. So we got
Okay.
all the parts. They'll take the screen off, fix the screen, whatever's, these guys are outstanding. So they're great.
Okay.
And they work fast.
All right, well, that's good to know. The other thing is just a comment. I definitely want to know, I'm sure we all do, what the plan is for when a student or staff, somebody tests positive, especially with CTE, and with any of the functions that you're looking at bringing back, CTE preschool, special education. So personally, I'm definitely interested in knowing what the plan is going to be. And then the last thing I wanted to ask, not necessarily part of your update, but somewhat along the same lines, where are we with enrollment? Do you know what our actual enrollment numbers are? And can you speak to some of the challenges that you've been seeing?
Yeah, so our enrollment numbers, we're about 1660. Our kindergarten numbers were about 68 and our pre-K numbers is at 31. So we are at least 70 below in kindergarten and at least 50 below in pre-K at this time. The rest of the grades are the same and what they normally are. We're not losing students, but normally, when the seniors drop off, we pick up kindergartners. But due to, the uncertainty with the full day, we're not going to school. There are schools going back, some Catholic schools going back, the STEAM Academy going back. And I think a lot of people have chosen those options over the virtual option. So the enrollment is down, and that's based upon we haven't rejuvenated with the kindergartners, and our pre-K is down with only 31. So with us bringing back 31 pre-Ks, 5 or 6 in the class, 6 in the class won't be large numbers at all. And then with the special ed, we only have 12 special ed students who have confirmed that they would like to return to school. And CTE, believe we only got like 9 that are in the critical CTE areas that need to do hands-on, which is firefighter, graphics. And I think culinary is one also. So that's where we are. We're not trying to bring back large numbers, but there's critical groups that, if possible, we want to get them in here.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
update also.
Thank you. If there are no other comments, again, thank you for your update. It was a lot of good information, good questions, Board Member Gator. Dr. Rock, we are at item 1.6. If you want to take over, but before you take over, I do want to thank you for the additional information that you gave the board when we were asking questions about an update that you had provided to us. So thank you for that additional info. and we'll let you get started on your update.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Let me get it up.
There it is.
All right, let me get it. Hold
Thank you, Mr. Jolly. You could go straight to the next slide. So tonight, we're going to review the banking strategies that we utilize for the district. The district utilizes 4 bank accounts for operations of the district and investment of school funds. There's an operational bank account. We use the Star Ohio account, which the board gave me permission to do when I first joined the team. And then we have 2 investment accounts. Okay, next slide. The operational account, this collects all of the revenue of the district, real estate tax revenue, state funding, all of the revenue. It also pays all the bills, all operations and construction bills. It also pays the payroll. And in this account, it earns a small interest rate either through the money market, sweep account, or target earnings credit, depending on what the interest rate markets are. Right now, we're doing targeted credit for targeted credit. The Star Ohio account is an investment account. That's through the state of Ohio. It's invested to provide interest revenue to Ohio state and local governments. Although it's invested, it's fully liquid. So in other words, I could have $1 in there today and I could take $1 out tomorrow. I don't have to worry about it maturing. The interest rate lags with the interest rate markets. But right now, the Star Ohio account is at 0.29%. And 1 year ago, interest rates for the Star Ohio was 2.27. So you can see how much interest rates have dropped. Next slide, please. The 2 investment accounts are UBS and Fifth Third that we utilize. General funds and construction funds are invested. The construction funds are invested based on a future cash flow. In other words, when we need the money for the construction schedule to make payments. And then the general funds are invested based on future cash flow needs. What we invest in are federal and state level agencies, bonds, government-backed investments, and CDs, all through our investment policy, which is also prescribed by the Ohio Revised Code. And this earns interest rates that are greater than the interest rates that we would get in the operational account. So that's why you want to have investment accounts. Cash flow and investment strategy concept. The concept is to invest funds that are dormant for a period of time. In other words, if we're not going to use the money today, we can invest it today and then use it in the future. We need to time the cash flow needs with the maturity of the investments. So in other words, the investments mature, we get the interest off of them, and then we move those funds from the investment accounts into the operational account as needed. Here's our successful investment planning. This is the fruits of our labor. In 2014, our interest revenue was $18,000. The next year was $8,000 and $8,000. 2017 is when when I joined the team and the board let us start investing. We went to $157,000, but you can see if you look at 2020, we're almost at $1.5 million. Half of that is operational and the other half is construction funds. Risk equals the reward. So utilizing this strategy, there's risks of transfers and timing analysis. In other words, is the transfer going to be made in time before an account balance may drop due to the timing? An account balance may be overdrawn while it's waiting for amount to be transferred in from an investment. Large amount in the operational account, though, that's also a risk because if it's in the operational account, it's not going to be earning that interest rate that's more favorable in the investment accounts. So the transfer strategy is to find an effective balance of investing the funds and also having an operational account balance. Further strategy is and this is my strategy personally, more transfers equal more risk of the account balance to be overdrawn. So I like to replenish the operational account with cash flow for at least 6 to 12 months. And then the last strategy, and
very important also is a strong banking partnership for effective communication if an account needs a transfer of funds. In other words, your banking partner, the bank, should be contacting us if they foresee any problems or if there are any problems happening. Interest rate revenue results. This is the results of our investments. Investments are held to maturity. We collect the full amount of interest on the investment. That's by utilizing that concept where I said we're not going to do too many transfers, but when we do invest it, it's going to be invested for the full term. And then having a healthy balance in the operational fund, that provides cash flow and decreases the potential of overdrawn accounts. In other words, like I mentioned, I like to have 6 to 12 months of cash flow in the bank. And then the last one, effective bank partnership with immediate communication of any account balance problems, or if it's going to be overdrawn, can be a secondary precaution while preserving the maximization of investment funds. And that's what we want to do. We want to maximize the interest revenue. If we weren't utilizing these strategies, we wouldn't be hitting $1.5 million in interest revenue. Some of the other sections on the finance section of the agenda tonight, unused vacation day payouts as per the contract language, 403B special pay plan for the WEA retirees as per the negotiated agreement, approval of new funds, which is 467, 507, 510, and 509. The majority of those are CARES Act funds. And then also, as discussed earlier, the Infinity Construction GMP #1 for phase 2 for $3 million for the pre-site plan. The next section is bond finance. What I have listed here is some of the bonds that we financed in the past financings for phase 2. And what you notice is of this, there's $4.1 million of bonds. Notice that the interest rate is 5%. Now, granted, this is way out in 2038, going to 2046, but we had to structure it that way to sell those bonds due to the market at that time. If we go to the next slide, there's more bonds. This is $17 million of bonds, and they're 5.25% coupons, and they're in 2050 to 2055. Again, we needed to structure the financing that way accordingly to the way that the interest markets were. Now, for the whole financing, our total rate was a lot lower than the 5, but those 5s were in there, and they're at the end of the financing. So if we go to the next slide, the interest rates right now, the interest rate market, those 5% and 5.25% bonds can be refinanced around 3%. So we would have a substantial savings in interest cost, which would be millions of dollars for the district, with a possible earlier payoff date, and then also favorable interest rate markets that we have right now. And all of the costs of the transaction are in the bond issue, just like we've done before. So in other words, by doing this, the district is not fronting any money. It's all paid off within the bond proceeds of the actual financing. And with that, I'd like to put it over to Michael Purcell, our municipal fund advisor, and he could explain this more about the opportunity that we have to do some refinancing for the district. Go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, Dr. Rock. I appreciate the opportunity tonight to talk to the board. It's good to be in front of you again, especially with some good news of saving money instead of having to spend extra money. So this is a real nice situation for the board. If the board can recall, one of the topics when we approached the financing last time, and we talked about this at length with Dr. Rock, was the call date. The call date in the bond world is essentially the prepayment date. This gives and affords the opportunity to the district to call in principal if they have excess funds, or as in this case, they have an opportunity to refinance that principal at a lower rate. Very similar to what anyone would do with their home mortgage. You have an outstanding bill every month, rates fall, you go ahead and tell the bank, I want to refinance my mortgage at a lower rate so that your monthly mortgage payment comes down. One of the things that we needed to implement in the structure of the last issue in 2019 along with the one that we did, which was smaller, under $10 million in 2018, was implement this short call date for 5 years. The reason is in the years past, prior to 2018, the law allowed you to refinance in advance of that call on a tax exempt basis. That law no longer exists. So in order to make potential refinancings more economically feasible, we implemented the shorter call in the event that what is happening right now happened. And that is interest rates have bottomed out. We have hit historical lows on treasury rates, municipal market rates, and tax exempt rates. And this is all due to COVID-19. Earlier in the year, we expressed this opportunity to Dr. Rock, and we were examining it, but certain market volatility took away the opportunity right as COVID hit the street, and markets did not know how to react. Financial markets have had all summer to essentially realize what is going on in the economy, and at this point, interest rates are so low that we have an opportunity to taxably refinance this debt. In essence, right now, on a conservative basis, we are looking at refinancing the portions that Dr. Rock presented just a minute ago on those slides to the tune of savings through 2055 of about $10.5 million. It's a significant portion of money. And on a present value ratio basis, that represents around 13.5% of the outstanding principal we are refinancing. In the industry, the standard is if you can achieve a 3% net present value ratio, then you are generally, the benchmark is there to move forward. This particular issue as it stands right now is at 13.5%. So it is really of a significant opportunity for the taxpayers of the district to refinance this debt. There may be a slight opportunity to even eliminate a few maturities, in essence, save money and shorten the bond issue. A lot of things can happen between now and when we do price the bonds. But I was going to sit there and see if anyone wanted to have any questions at this point before I just go into a brief summary of next steps.
Well, first, Mike, I'd like to add too, for the board. The first thing is that's, we put that we put the call date into the structure of all of our financing, anticipating and seeing that how volatile the interest rates were. Even though we were striking when the interest rates were the best they were at that time, we still knew, and you had indicators, and that's where you advised us and you advised the board. I remember us talking about this, where we put those early calls in there, especially with the changing of the law. So this was a very, very powerful move for the district and for the board. And we thank you for letting us do this, because now this is all coming to fruition. The second thing I just wanted to summarize also is when Mr. Priscilla is mentioning that the industry standard for net present value is 3%. And on this, the savings is 13.5, which is substantially more savings than what the industry standard is. That's like looking at if you were refinancing your house, and you know how when they say it's not good to go refinance unless you're going to go save at least 1.5 to 2% points off your mortgage. That's what he's mentioning here. It's just a different use of terms on net present value.
Thank you. Dr. Rock, real quick, just as a reminder, can you remind everyone what the call excuse me, the call date means?
Oh, definitely. The call date is at when it's the opportunity to go and refinance. The law changed to where that call date was somewhere around 7 years. So we would have had to wait for 7 years to refinance, whether even if interest rates were negative or zero, we wouldn't be allowed to do that call date. So the call date was factored in to it was put into our financing issues for us to have that opportunity. And we had to pay for it. It was part of the proceeds. But again, all of the cost of this is built into the the cost of the fund, or the cost of the financing and the bond proceeds.
Thank you much. Mike, are you, Mr. Priscilla,
Yeah,
you
I'm
picking back up?
Yeah, I'm still here. Sure. Much in the same manner as we approach the last bond issue, everything is identical. What we're going to do is, and we've already started, we have preliminary drafts of legislation for the board's review. Dr. Rock will distribute those sometime this week for passage in next week's meeting. If there are any edits to those, we can have those done prior to that meeting. Now, I just want to make certain the board realizes that passing this legislation next week does not commit the board or the district to any financing. All it does is take away one of the required steps on the legal side to make certain that when the time does come and we are prepared to move to market, it's one of the boxes we will need have checked off. So that's the only reason we want to get that in front of the board. It also gives us the opportunity to start applying for credit enhancement through the state. If you can recall, last time we did not qualify for state credit enhancement unless we altered the structure of the issue significantly, which did not work within our strategies. However, after having gotten the issue taken care of and with new foundation settlement payments coming through, we are going to go ahead and apply again. It is free, and see if there is any portion of this debt that we can get qualified under the Ohio Credit Enhancement Program through the state of Ohio. And if not, the numbers that we do have presented to Dr. Rock do implement the use of bond insurance. The bond insurance, for that matter, if we go ahead with this transaction, you will be refunded for the difference in the bond insurance for the new issue. It's one of the things Dr. Rock made certain we implemented in our commitment agreement with Build America Mutual on the last issues, so that any unused portion of debt for which the bond insurance was paid will be refunded in this issue if it is refinanced. So that's a really nice option that Dr. Rock made certain was in those negotiations. So that's what makes this a win-win, really, on both sides. So legislation's passed. We move into the phase where we will go ahead and prepare the preliminary official statement, the disclosure document that everyone is so familiar with. Then we will have a call with Moody's and give them an update as to what's going on. They will be very eager to hear, especially all the good information provided to the board today by Steve Zanoni's group as to where we stand on the construction project, as well as what the fiscal situation of the district will be. Naturally, they are going to inquire as to the potential funding issues as presented by the state of Ohio with foundation settlement cuts and how property values will fare going forward. We have found that Moody's has been rather sympathetic to the situation here in Ohio, in as much that there has been national talk of failing real estate values. As of right now, that is just the opposite, especially here in Ohio. So I really think we'll be able to fare well with Moody's and explain exactly the information, not only that Steve had provided, but what Mr. Jolly had provided, where the district has been put in a situation and has really answered the call in preparation for the COVID situation. All that will ultimately be discussed. Naturally, that will be a Zoom meeting, not in person. And then once that happens, we'll move to market. Our intent would be to set the interest rates prior to the election, regardless of the outcome of the election. I do believe there will be added volatility in the interest rate and equity markets, no matter what. Less so if the incumbent remains in office, much more so if there is a new president come next year. So we want to make certain we kind of get in front of that. So we're working on that time frame with bond counsel as we speak. But with that said, a lot can happen between now and when we do price. We'll keep Dr. Rock apprised of the situation along with the board. Anytime you need me to present, either on the Zoom call or in terms of a community forum, if need be, I'll always be available, just like through the last process. And again, any questions at this time, I'll be happy to answer them. As always, it's always a pleasure to talk to the board again.
Thanks so much, Mike. It's always nice to have you here as well. Board members, do you have any questions for Mr. Priscilla?
Madam Chair, I do have a question. Hi, Mike, how are you?
Mr. Freeman, very well, sir. How are you?
When you're doing those calls, what's the length of time they allow you to put in those packages for those calls? Like how many years?
The call date for the bond issue?
Yes.
So normally, a lot of the normal call options in the market have been 10 years. Dr. Rock had made a mention that we paid for that shorter call. That's kind of a not so much that there was a fee associated with that, but whenever you shorten a call, there is a slight increase to overall debt service. But our strategy implemented conservative assumptions in order to implement that short call. So
Okay.
that's why we did go with 5. 10 years being the normal standard, I would say that on average, before COVID and before any of the tax exempt markets were to go have been as volatile as they've been, it's probably around 8 years, but we've been extremely successful implementing the 5-year call. And for this reason alone, without a 5-year call, if we were at a 7-year call, we wouldn't be talking about this refinancing opportunity. The economics simply wouldn't work.
Okay. And also, Mike, would you have to go through the process of getting a rating from Moody again?
Yes, we will definitely have to get another rating. We'll go through a conference call with them. I know that the Chicago office is not taking any meetings there at all. I don't even think those analysts are going in the office anymore, not only to COVID, but also with what's happening in the city. So we may actually be looking to New York again. Neither place a great option in terms of a personal visit, but we would definitely be having a conference call, more than likely a Zoom call. And if need be, we can always reach out to the analysts to see if they want to come by, but I don't believe they're traveling at all.
Thank
And
you
a
so much, Mike. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you.
A refinance call isn't a refinance, bond financing for refinance isn't as in depth as the original ones that we did. Also because they have our current information. It's just an update of our information. So it's not going to be as rigorous. Is that correct, Mike?
Normally, Dr. Rock, you would be correct, but with the COVID situation, I would anticipate it to be as rigorous, if not more, than the original.
Ability to pay.
Because
I mean, we don't have to personally go there.
no. Like I said, they're not taking any in-person presentations, anyways. But we will have to do some prep sessions, specifically, not so much for any other reason than they are going to go in depth on how COVID has affected the district, how it's affected funding, how it's affected real estate values, all the information that Mr. Jolly just provided in terms of enrollment, in terms of curriculum. A lot of that will be asked. We've gone through probably a dozen of these during this quarantine. We've done several of these taxable refinancings. We're in the midst of several of them as we speak. But as long as we have the information, and they will provide us the questions in advance of the call, I think they just want to make certain that you're adequately prepared to handle the situation. And just based on today's information, I have zero concern on that whatsoever.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Rock, did you want to move forward, or board, are there any other questions?
Can I just ask one quick follow-up question?
Sure.
For Mike, you mentioned legislation was passed. Do you know which legislation that was? Was there a House bill or Senate bill or something attached to it?
You have not passed any legislation as of yet. We've gotten preliminary drafts of that legislation. It hasn't even gone in front of your eyes yet.
No. I'm sorry. You said legislation was passed that gives us the authority to do this now. Did I misunderstand? Or when you said legislation, were you referring to a resolution for the board to review?
That is correct. I apologize for not clarifying that. We will have legislation for the board to pass at your, I believe it's the September 2nd meeting.
Yep. It'll be a
Yes.
new board, it'll be a new board resolution.
Yes, it will be a new board resolution. And I wanted to reiterate, by passing that is not a commitment. That is simply making certain that we have that box checked to move forward. That's all.
And what's the amount that we're being asked to refinance?
Approximately $23 million.
Okay.
Municipal fund advisors and bond counsel use the word legislation, and it equates to board resolution.
Yeah, I apologize for that. I did not use the right term.
That's fine.
When
Thank
we
you.
hear-
I just wanted to clarify.
Certainly, good.
Yeah,
very
when
good
we hear
question.
legislation, we think it's something from the governor.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely correct.
All right, Dr. Rock, does that conclude your update?
I just have one more slide.
okay.
We couldn't finish without this. Emergency levy renewal, it's on the ballot for November 3rd, 2020. This is a levy renewal with zero increase in taxes, and it will maintain $1.8 million in tax revenue for the district. We're awaiting an issue number from the county, and this renewal has been renewed every 5 years since 1990. And again, a renewal is no increase in taxes. The renewal is just existing levies that we have on our coffers. And that concludes my section.
All right. Dr. Rock, I do have a question. You share with us that you are going to create 4 new funds specifically related to COVID-19, 467, 507, 510, and 509. How will you
Yes.
do that reporting? How will you share how those funds are how much is coming in, who it's coming in from, how it's being used, et cetera, with the board? Will that be monthly or quarterly?
Oh, it'll be monthly. You'll see them. They'll be on the FinSum report. 467 is the Success and Wellness Fund. That already came into action. All of these funds are really not required to be approved by the board, but now since it's come to a quantity of 4, it's best practice for us to put it into the board so it's in board minutes. So 467, that's already been in action. You've seen that in the books already. I mean, it was barely in action last year. It's fully in action this year. That's the health and the Success and Wellness Fund. 507 and 509 are the CARES Act. Oh, I'm sorry, 507 and 510 are CARES Act funding, and that's funding that's coming in from the federal government for us this year. One of them is $954,000, and the other one is $107,000. Again, you'll see those on the FinSum, and those come through to us through the state grants, and all of the budgets and information for that is approved through Mr. Jolly and I and his team, and we put budgets in on those. The $954,000 CARES Act fund, we mentioned that in our action plan for the 5-year forecast, and we're utilizing that to cover some salaries to preserve a student ratio in our classrooms. And then Fund 509 is a replacement fund on early childhood education, where that fund used to be called 516. And that was just a change by, again, the Ohio Department of Education. So all 4 of those funds are already approved by the Ohio Department of Education. If we were audited and they came and asked us, where's the board approval? I could tell them, well, it's already established by the Ohio Department of Education. They're not really required to be a new fund. But I think now that we're up to 4 new funds, we might as well have the board approve it and put it in our minutes. So then when the auditors do come in, I can just give them the minutes.
Thank you, sir. Mimi, I see you have your hand up.
Thank you. So I just want to clarify, the amounts that you just gave us, the 954 and the 107, do you know which one is going to which account code?
Yes. 955,000 is going to 507. And the 107,000 is going to 510.
And then you said the 509 is going to early childhood. So when you're referring to the FinSum, you mentioned that word FinSum, you're talking about
Yeah.
cash reconciliation And if we look on page 2, you see the different account codes. Is that correct? Starting on page 2, can you not hear me? I see you looking.
Usually when you get your board reports, like the first page is our bank rec. And then when you move in there, there'd be a FinSum report. It lists, every fund is listed, and the first fund will be 001.
Oh,
And then you would
okay.
see those listed in there.
All right, I see where it says FinSum. So that's the financial report by fund is the one that shows us the account balances. And how
Yes.
much is spent. Okay. I have one other question. Could you explain page 1 of your cash reconciliation? I know we get it on a regular basis, but as I was looking at it, I noticed where the on page 1 of your cash reconciliation, gross depository balance, several months, for several months at 0. And now it says 126 and some change. So can you just explain what those different fields are for?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that's on the bank rec. That's in our operational account. When I call it our operational account, that's at PNC. Prior to this, we were using a sweep account, which is also at PNC. So the balance in the operational account will be 0 every day because they sweep it into an investment account that goes into investments overnight, all within the same bank. Now, the sweep interest rate went way low to the point to where it was better for us to just leave it in a money market and then also go for a credit target savings. Credit target savings is where we keep a certain amount in our bank account, and that eats up the bank fees that we would have to pay if we didn't have it in that account. So if you look at the earlier ones, you'll notice there's a line for sweep account, and that had an amount in it. If you look at the new cash reconciliations, you'll see that the PNC has in the regular operating account, it has 126,000, but you notice the sweep account says 0.
So there is no sweep account on this one. So is that what you mean? It says 0, there's no sweep account listed.
Yeah, right now there's no sweep account because it's not advantageous for us to put any money in the sweep account. The bank lowered the interest rate to practically nothing.
Okay, so what I'm understanding then, so when it says adjustments, bank balance, outstanding checks, and then it says adjustments, is that the money that you're transferring back in to ensure that nothing is overdrawn? When I saw the 0 balance, I said, well, how do we ensure that we don't end up becoming overdrawn? Does that make sense? Because it says 0.
Yeah, that isn't the one that was overdrawn. The one that would hit 126, that was on the last day of July. By the first couple days of August, that went overdrawn.
Right, I'm sorry, I understand that. I'm just saying in the months prior to that, your gross depository balance said 0.
Yes, and the other amount was in the sweep account. Sometimes it was high as $12 million. This is all within the same account. So at PNC Bank, we have an operational account, a payroll account, a money market account, and a sweep account. In the spring,
if I can,
yes.
the way that sweep account works, think about 2 buckets of water. When it's the money sits side of the bucket, and then as needed, it pours out and it pours into the other bucket to put in what is needed to allow cash flow through that other account. So it literally sweeps it in and sweeps it out, and had the interest rates at PNC stayed at a good place. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Rock, you would have kept the money in the sweep account to allow it to keep earning interest there. But since it's not, it sits on the money market side of the account now, where it's going to earn more interest. And then you move it over. So I think what we want to make sure is, and you addressed that in some of the feedback that you gave us, we want to make sure that we don't have a situation where there is any potential overdraft issues ever again.
Okay, the overdraft issue. Had
Meaning-
nothing to do, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm trying to make sure I'm getting at what she was asking.
So I understand the sweep account. So, and I guess that's the explanation as to why it always ends up zero.
Yes, it sweeps
Is
back
that
out.
correct, Dr. Rock? Because when I look back, I saw for the April 30th reconciliation, it was like 18 million. So that must have been when you closed the sweep account and moved the money up into a PNC account. And then from
Yes.
there, we just let it ride out until the money was gone, basically. Is that about right?
Almost, that's almost, so
Okay,
how the sweep account works is if you're using the sweep account, your regular account is always going to have a zero balance at the end of the day. Because what it does is the bank says, oh, there's money in this account. We're going to sweep it over here to investments overnight. And then the sweep account's going to go to zero in the morning. The regular account's going to have that money in there. Okay.
okay.
And all of these accounts are at the same bank that we're talking about. The overdraw, again, the balance was down to 126. I had a timing difference where I thought it was at 2.6 million because of construction payment, and I was going to put the money in 2 days later on a Monday. And in the first days of August, the 126 went below zero and it was overdrawn. At that point, it didn't matter if the money was in a sweep account, money market, target savings, or operations. Our whole account was negative. Okay. And what I replenished that with is our investment accounts, which would be UBS and Fifth Third. That's where the transfer comes in.
And you're saying that transfers will come from the UBS and Fifth Third accounts?
I can't hear you, Mrs.
I'm
Gator.
sorry, are you saying the transfers will come from the UBS and Fifth Third accounts?
She's asking if the transfers are going to come from the UBS and Fifth Third accounts.
Yes, exactly. Those investment accounts, money gets transferred in there to be invested, and then money gets transferred out to go to operations and make payments.
Okay. One final question, Madam Chair, and then I'm done. When it comes to investments, and I hear you talking about like interest rates, we're earning interest on these accounts, right?
Yes.
So how do you track the interest? How do we know how much interest we've made to date?
Oh, it gets posted every month. On the investment accounts, it's not like leaving the money in the account. It's actually invested in investments. So there may be investment that is a 1-year CD that's going to earn so much interest. There could be a 2-year treasury in there. There could be a 1-year agency with the federal government. So all of those are invested. And I do those based on cash flow on either if we need it for operational cash flow or construction cash flow.
So if we said to you, Dr. Rock, we'd like to see how much interest we've earned on our investments, is that something that you could give to us?
Yeah, I just gave it to you 20 minutes ago. We got $1.4 million last year in interest revenue.
Right. So is that something that you could do? How frequently could that information get to us?
It comes in every month, and you could see it on the RevLed in the RecLed report. It'll show up as interest revenue.
So I'm assuming a RecLed is going to be on the cash reconciliation report?
Yeah, it'll be further in. It'll be the bank statement, then the FinSum, and then there will be one called the RecLed. And that shows all of the receipts that came in for the month. And you'll see the ones that are labeled for interest.
Okay.
And see what happened here, though, the one part that really bothers me, and yes, it was overdrawn, but as soon as I was informed that it was overdrawn, it was fixed within 3 hours. However, the bank left the account overdrawn for 2 days and didn't contact me immediately. That's one of the things I'm researching and I need to get improved. But in conjunction with that, I'm going to keep more in the operational account. Again, this is because we have construction payments going out and that inflates our activity. And just so you know, and this is, the bank doesn't call for 2 days. In a 1-year period, we had $120 million go through the bank. So it's a little unnerving that, because they called me, I fixed it within 3 hours, but why did they call me 2 2 to 3 days late,
I agree.
especially on a $120 million account.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rock, for taking the time to explain that. I really wanted to better understand the cash reconciliation report that you've been providing. I looked at it, I looked at different things, I guesstimate on what it should be, so it was good to be able to ask these questions to get clarity.
Oh, that's no problem. This is full transparency. I wanted us as a team to know about this.
And I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Dr. Rock. If there are no more questions, we are ready to move to section 2 on the agenda. And I do want to thank everyone for a good discussion, great updates. Lots of information, lots going on right now. So thank the board for your time and patience as we move through some really important topics right there. I need a motion on the floor to approve by consent agenda, treasurer's report and financial recommendations for item 2.1 through 2.5. Board, you have to come off mute, please.
I'm trying to pull up the screen. There we go.
Okay,
It's coming.
thank you.
Madam Chair, I move the item number 2, the consent treasurer's report and financial recommendations, looking at items 2.1 through 2.5.
May I have a second?
I second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Board, is there any further discussion on this section?
Madam Chair, I just had one question for Dr. Rock. So we've received all of our money for CARES Act? You received it all?
No, actually, that's money that is there for us, but we have to submit and we're reimbursed.
That's what I thought.
So it's done just like any other state grants that we get. So like Title I, they promise us the money, we spend it, and we submit for reimbursement. So the budget is sitting there, the money is sitting there, and then we spend it accordingly to the way that the budgets were presented to the state, and then the state reimburses us back.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
All righty. There's no further questions. Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll for the vote?
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Next on the agenda is section 3. We need a motion for consent to approve superintendent's recommendations and presentations for board action, certified staff.
Madam Chair, I move item number 3, the consent superintendent recommendations and presentations for board action, certified staff, looking for items 3.1 to 3.3.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I
I
second.
second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Board, is there any conversation on this one, this section?
Madam Chair, can you just, the resignation, can you just click on that? I just want to make sure I remember. Oh,
That's our firefighter teacher.
yeah, so,
Antoine Cruz. That's our, we hired Chief Wilcox at our last meeting, on that special meeting on a Monday to replace him.
Are there any additional questions?
no.
Is that the correct date?
Oh, it should be 20,
Oh, it should say 20.
2020.
Let me-
Thank you.
I'll correct that.
I think I saw another one that had 19 as opposed to 20 also. I think there were 2 that had 19 as opposed to 20.
For the record, it should say effective date 7/31/20.
2020. Thank you for that catch.
Oh, yeah, it's the next one, Mr. Roberts. It's in 4.1.
Yes.
Okay.
I will ask the board, if we're not speaking, there seems to be some background noise. If we can put our phones on mute. Thank you. I mean, not phones, our computers and iPads. There's no further comments or questions. Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Miss Mitchell.
Yes, motion passes 5-0, and the changes on the effective date will be made on both on 3.1. Next on the agenda is section 4. I need a motion on the floor to approve by consent agenda superintendent's recommendations and presentations for board action classified staff. This is 4.1 through 4.9, and we are going to make note that that date, the effective date for the resignation on 4.1 will be changed from 2019 to 2020. May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move the item number 4, consent superintendent's recommendation and presentation for board action classified staff, with the notation that we're changing that date to 2020. I'm looking for items 4.1 through 4.9.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I second.
I second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Board, is there any questions, comments, conversation on this section?
I'd just like to add, we're just preparing these people will work on an as needed basis. So they're not contractually locked in at all. Mr. Alexander would definitely using him because he'll continue to work and help us. Yep, that's it.
All right, thank you, sir. If there's nothing further, Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Miss Mitchell.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Next on our agenda is section number 5. I need a motion on the floor to approve the agenda superintendent's recommendations, personnel and program.
Madam Chair, you're going out.
Am I?
Yeah.
Can you hear me
Yes.
now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. I need a motion on the floor to approve by consent agenda superintendent's recommendations and presentation for personnel and programs. That'll be item 5.1 through 5.6.
Ray, you're on mute.
Madam Chair, I move item number 5, the consent superintendent recommendation and presentation for personnel and programs. I'm looking for items 5.1 through 5.9.
May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded. Board, is there any discussion on this section?
Madam Chair, does 5.1 need to be read or no?
That's the resolution. Can you click that one open, Mr. Jolly? I don't think it does.
Okay. All right.
While they're looking, what determines when a resolution should be read?
We typically ask the attorneys to make sure.
Okay.
Usually it
So that-
doesn't have to be read, just the title covered.
Yeah. Because we kept having a lot of question about that in prior years. And so Dr. Rock and I asked Donna, so there would never be any more confusion because it was confusing me.
No questions from me, Madam Chair.
All right, anyone else?
Just no, don't even worry about it. Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
What's the comment?
No, I don't have anything. I'm good.
All right, Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Who seconded? I'm sorry, I didn't get the second.
I think Barbara did.
Miss Barbara?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Miss Mitchell.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Next on the agenda is board policies. We have 6.1, which is a second reading of volume 38, number 2. And 6.2, which is volume 39. So policy 8450.01's protective facial coverings during a pandemic or epidemic events. Mr. Jolly, I'm going to hand over 6.1 to you first.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. We're ready to approve that one. If we can do 6.2, and then we'll go back and put the motion on the floor to approve 6.1.
Okay.
Mrs. Jolly, were you speaking to that or no?
Yeah, I'm gonna speak to it now. Just you see it now. It's up.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Oh, hold on. Just clicked off. Okay, so 6.2 is I'm sorry, 8.450.01 is facial coverings. This is where the board, we get to determine what type of facial coverings that we will require students to wear. In this one, the selection, we will have face guards and masks. We will have masks and shields for our district employees. They can wear their own if necessary and needed, but we have purchased enough masks and shields for all our employees. In this one, we determined that we would like for students to wear a face mask unless they're unable to do so for health or developmental reasons. Efforts will be made to reduce any social stigma for students who, for medical or developmental reasons, cannot or should not wear a mask. So basically, we're saying that all students should attempt to wear a mask. K-12, pre-K-12. This last one for the board's discussion, if a student refuses to wear a mask, that we can refer them to online learning. I strongly support that. It's going to be very, these are special times and we need everyone to cooperate. I mean, I think all efforts, we know third graders, oh, not a third, but a 5-year-old might not wear a mask or try to, but we got to work with them. I think as long as we work in the child is showing effort and the families are working in collaboration, they're good. But I think for our staff, they do need some support to ensure that students are wearing masks. Again, it states if a kid does have a disability, and we probably can't change them out, but that we do have the authority and just say when we go back full time, we got everybody or hybrid model, you have people who just refuse to wear them. What options do we have with them with this situation that's at hand? And then the last one is on the buses to ensure that they wear masks on the buses that we expect them to. And that's pretty much it. It just goes over when you can take them off and so forth, and use of face shields. That's it.
Board members, do you have any questions about this one? Go
Yes,
ahead,
ma'am.
Amy.
Just a quick one. So when will you share this with staff? How will this particular one be shared with staff and the community for that matter?
As soon as you approve it, it's going to be shared. I mean, because we got to get it out. If we plan on bringing any students back to the school, this has to be distributed. We're going to have, if we do bring students back, we will have like parent meetings to go over all of this stuff so that they're clear on what the expectation is and what the consequence is. And then with our staff, our principals, next week is a week of professional development. So we have opportunities next week to ensure that our staff is aware of what the policy is also.
Are we able to put this on the website in some kind of
Oh,
way?
yeah,
Our
it'll be on the-
coronavirus page? Okay.
Yes, we'll have Ms. Palace put it up. As soon as it's approved, it'll become one of our prominent website links.
Thank you. Thank you.
Board, did everyone have a chance to read the policy thoroughly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because what I'd like to do, because of timing, it is critical that this one bypass the second reading. And that's why I went ahead and had both talked about, because what I'd like to do is put a motion on the floor for both 6.1 and 6.2 to be approved tonight. Simply because of the flow of events that are going to be happening over the next week. And we will have a very, very small population of students returning to school. So if there's no further discussion, can we please have a motion on the floor to approve items 6.1 and 6.2, knowing that we're bypassing the second reading of item 6.2?
Madam Chair, I move item number 6, board policies. We're looking for approval for 6.1, volume 38, number 2, second reading, and item 6.2, volume 39, number 1, policy 8450.01, protective facial covering during pandemic epidemic events.
May I have thank you, Mimi. It's been moved and properly seconded. If there's no further discussion, Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Miss Mitchell.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. And I do want to thank you, board, for allowing us to move quicker on item 6.2 than we normally would. At this point, we are at section 7. Mr. Jolly, can you move the agenda down so we can go into executive session, please, sir? So we need a motion on the floor to go into executive session.
Madam Chair, item number 7, executive session. This board will go into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
May I have a second, please?
A second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded. Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Oh, yes, sir.
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Miss Mitchell.
Yes, sir. Motion is approved, 5-0. At this time, we are going to go into executive session. For those community members that are watching us on YouTube, please stay tuned. We will be back to end our meeting. See you soon. Well, looks like we made it through to the other side. Thank you for a good conversation, board. There's nothing else on our agenda. We don't have any unfinished business. Dr. Rock, is there any correspondence?
No, there is not.
All right. Mr. Jolly, I didn't know if you wanted to make the announcement again about convocation.
Oh, yeah, so convocation is on Friday, our first virtual convocation. We have some surprise guests in our video. You guys will be very pleased on what you will see. And it's going to be an outstanding event. Our first virtual convocation.
They say, woo! I just want to say really quick, this year has been the most unbelievable year in my 57 years. I hope we never see another one like it, but I do say that this team has done an exemplary job coming through the crazy, and it has been crazy. You all have stuck through it. I know it has been a very hairy time on many occasions. I know you're dealing with a lot from the community, the educators, everything. There's so much going on right now. So I just want to thank you and applaud you for the great work that you've done. Barbara, are you trying to get my attention? Just hold on 1 second, please. And you're still on mute. Shucks, I forgot my train of thought. Just thank you for all the great work that you all have done. Go ahead, Barbara.
No, I was just gonna ask Mr. Jolly, what time does it start?
8 o'clock.
8 a.m.
8 a.m. And the link was sent today, but I'll make sure you get it.
Yeah, it's everything
Okay,
is in our board email. It came this afternoon.
Oh, okay. All
Okay.
right. Thank you.
All right. If there is nothing else, great meeting, team. Everyone stay safe, stay healthy, and I need a motion on the floor. I am so sorry. I need a motion on the floor to adjourn this evening's meeting.
You're on mute, Ray. Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I second
It's
it.
been moved and seconded. Everyone, thank you for an amazing meeting. Have a good night.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Jolly.
Have a good one.